Good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Saturday edition of the Art Clinic Online. We are here with Gregory Ferrand. Am I saying your last name correct?
Ferrand.
Ferrand. Okay, thank
I'd
you.
say
Good.
it's like errand with an F.
Perfect. And he's hosted by our great friend and alumni of the Art Clinic Online program, Michael Janis. Michael's recording is probably actually one of our very first ones. He was one of our first presenters of I think back when we started this program almost 3.5 years ago. We're almost at four. Um, and we're grateful for Michael's to be such an incredible part of our program. I will remind you guys that the group show that we have featuring the Art Clinic Online artists is still up at the Popcorn Gallery here at Gleneco Park. It's open on the weekends from 12 to 6 p.m. and it's up till September 28th. Michael has one of the first pieces you'll see when you enter the gallery because I have such high regard for him. So you'll see this amazing glass portraiture piece that's similar to the one that's behind him, and then you'll see in a minute. But it's absolutely fabulous. So come check it out. See Michael's work. Drop a cool $8,000 on this beautiful piece that you will not regret having in your home. Because why wouldn't you? But also, if you can't afford $8,000, but you still want to know more about Michael's work, you can check out the recording of his presentation from way back and hear his incredible story as an architect, and all the way up to one of the directors or co-directors of the Washington Glass School. So, without further ado, my good friend Michael Janis.
Thank you, Jordan. Hi, everyone. I'm Michael Janis from the Washington Glass School, and I'm happy you're here with us today. And I get the great job of introducing someone whose work I've admired for a long time, painter Gregory Ferrand. Uh, Gregory paints the commonplace so that it's extraordinary. I mean, his compositions have a quiet, contemplative drama going on, even though his colors and fluid, rhythmic composition of figures are visually powerful. I think I first noticed Gregory's work at some of the big art fairs like Pulse, where he was showing with Ada Rose, and his paintings just stop you in your tracks. My own artwork is pretty figurative and narrative, so I felt a kinship to what he's doing. These are incredible story-driven images that manage to be beautiful and eerie and a little unsettling, and but still compelling all at once. And Gregory is no stranger to the DCC. He's shown at a number of the Artomatic shows. I think I first met him in person at Crystal City way back in the day, 2012. And he is DC born, so you can really feel a connection that way too. These days, you can see his work at Ada Rose in Kensington, Maryland, or out in Santa Fe at Evoke Contemporary. And heads up, he does have a huge solo show coming out at Ada Rose, so keep that on your radar. But his back to his work, his paintings take on themes of family and desire or alienation. I mean, they do it in a way that kind of critiques a growing sense of disconnection in our contemporary world. Often has themes of a solitude while in crowds, or like an emotional disconnect and a very kind of detached view of modern life. It was my take. I mean, I know that his background included film studies, and you can kind of see how film noir influences his work because you'll see like the use of light and shadow and almost like a voyeuristic composition angle to create a sense of quiet observation and a little bit of an unease. His work is very dreamlike and surreal, but there is a strong social commentary. They're disturbing and yet gorgeous, kind of like a George Tooker or a Paul Cadmus we're painting today. They're vivid, like people in your dreams. And he also creates detailed sketches that are almost architectural draftings to plan his compositions, which is a far cry from, doing just plein air painting. But they have a very strong impressionistic sensibility towards observation. And it's not just the art world that noticed his work. He had made the work for called an album by Tyler the Creator called Call Me If You Get Lost. And for anyone who doesn't know, Tyler the Creator is a Grammy-winning musician and a trendsetter that does hip hop and fashion. So it's no surprise that he's connected to Gregory's work because it's bold and it's emotional and it's completely unforgettable. So I'm thrilled with you to share his work with today. So let's dive into Gregory's painted world where humor, beauty, and unease live side by side, and this kind of uncanny mix of tenderness and bite. Gregory?
Thank you, Michael. Thank you for that wonderful introduction and analysis of my work. It it's pretty overwhelming to hear people talk about your stuff that way. So I really appreciate it. I'm gonna share my screen here. I just wanted to thank you, Jordan and Mariana, and again, Michael, for having me here today. I did a deep dive in all of the other artists you've had presentations and really enjoyed learning more about my peers. Many people I knew and have known, and others I didn't. So I'm really honored to be able to talk about my work today. Um, I I guess I'll begin by sort of talking about what kind of artist I think I am. Um, First, I'm a self-taught narrative painter, and I'm motivated to paint by the need to understand this crazy, beautiful existence that I'm living, that we're living. And I probably first came to understand that about myself in art school at Virginia Commonwealth University as a sculpture major in my sophomore year. It was after a critique day. Um, I don't know if you all have had critique days, but they were always really nerve-wracking. They took they took forever to do, and there was one in particular that really marked me for life. It was a critique led by sculptor and my professor, Lester Van Winkle, who's a well-known sculptor. And the truth is, I don't remember much about the critique. All I remember is that it took hours, and he wasn't going to my sculpture. He kept on walking past it, going to other sculptures. And when he finally did, which was at the end of the whole critique, he looked at it and said, "This is like a bad joke with no punchline." And he walked away. Um, what could I say to that? I was obviously pretty embarrassed, wanted to crawl away and hide, but after, some time and reflecting, I came to understand that what Lester was trying to say about my work was that it needed to have soul. Like whatever I was going to be talking about, it had to have something real infused in it. And while I don't have any pictures, any photos of that sculpture, I was able to find some preparatory sketches of it, which I'll share here, if I can do this correctly. And this is it. It was this big, huge, I made they're the hair clippers out of steel and aluminum casted leg that was chopped off. And he was right. It was awful. It was absolutely terrible. And so, I was young, I was sort of lost, and I really began to understand that I was interested in telling stories. And I started to make videos in sculpture with not much of a better reception than those sculptures, because at that time, the sculpture department wasn't interested in videos that had any kind of linear narrative or linear line in it. And I wanted to do that. And so I switched from sculpture to film. And I was really interested in growing up in comics and animation. And during that time, became very interested in the work of Jim Jarmusch and the Coen brothers and Alejandro Jodorowsky and David Lynch and Wes Anderson and Fellini and all of these sort of dark and humorous and unsympathetic looks that they took on society and people and relationships. And so by the end of my senior year of college, I knew that one thing, that I was not ready to go be a filmmaker, and instead I needed to cancel my plans to go to LA with my friends, and I needed to travel. I needed to live. I needed to have experiences so that I could make meaningful work in the future. And most of all, I felt that there was something I had to say, but I had no idea what it was yet. Um, and so I went to Buenos Aires, Argentina, and I thought I would stay there for 6 months, gathering those stories. But I ended up staying for 2 years, living as an English teacher to professionals. And for a kid from the DC suburbs, I was absolutely blown away by the cultural richness of Argentina. And I began to keep an illustrated journal. At first, it was to record my experiences, like these that you see here, and then they became a place to process and depict my feelings. Something like this. Um, and ultimately, they became a laboratory for me to experiment with materials I had never come in account, really worked with before. So things like this, I didn't know how to paint really. When I was in college, I took some painting classes, but all of my professors were abstract painters, and they didn't teach us anything about sort of the basic elements of painting. And so I began doing that myself. I found these journals to be life-changing and therapeutic, and it was a way of experiencing art that I never had before. And so by the end of those 2 years in Buenos Aires, I knew that I was not a filmmaker. I was still a storyteller, but I wanted to be a painter. That's really what I was going to do. I could, as a painter, I could be the director, I could be the producer, I could be the actor, I could be the cinematographer. But I still had the same problem as before, which is I had no idea how to do it. And so I came back home to the States and immediately got a soul-crushing desk job scanning 500 slides of commercial real estate per day and lived with my parents until I could find my own place. And in terms of my painting, I was painting mostly on paper, and I was painting from a place of nostalgia. It was a sort of a dark, depressing time for sure. But after a year at that job, I was able to quit, thinking that I would pursue illustration, which was another thing I knew absolutely nothing about. And so I had to obviously continue having soul-crushing jobs like temping and painting houses, and I did get the odd commissions and occasional illustration jobs, but nothing was going particularly well. And so I continued to paint about Buenos Aires, this place of looking backwards. And this is maybe 3 years after I was already back. So, but I did come to a moment in 2004 where I thought this is ridiculous. I need to paint about where I am. Like I need to paint about the present. I still didn't know what, but I painted about everything then. I painted things that were political, like these. Some were observational from my travels. Um, but I knew, and these appeared the first time I was in Automatic, which was at the Children's Museum, which was a fantastic place where I met tons of artists. And throughout this journey, I did have breakthroughs in how I was applying the paint. And I sort of came to an understanding that titles were an important thing for me in giving a direction for the viewer to understand sort of what I was hoping they might take away from what I was, depicting. And I continued to draw on my personal stories as I continued to work out what I was trying to paint about. I found that the emotional subtext of situations really spoke to me, and I saw universal truths about the human experience in them. And I was really drawn to that, despite sometimes seeing them as being painful or difficult to reveal. I always felt like truth was better for me. And at this time, I began to show anywhere I could, bars and offices. I did 4 automatics. I did group shows. I continued to, find different kinds of jobs. Although I did find substitute teaching was a stable source of income for a while. It allowed me a flexible schedule and no responsibilities outside of those work hours, so I could focus on painting. And I was trying to do more social commentary at this time, and I began to set my paintings aesthetically in the 1950s and focused on the United States. I began to try to sort of look at my roots. I was born in DC, but my family comes from the Midwest, from Michigan, and so I was trying to sort of understand where I was coming from. And the Midwest sort of, for me, became a stand-in for American at that time. Not anymore, but at least there. And I began to explore societal pressures and roles a little bit more in my paintings. At the same time, the paintings took longer to complete as I became more interested in the technical side of painting. And The paintings became a bit more realistic, which I thought as being more convincing for what I was trying to talk about. Yeah, possibly making it easier for the viewer to connect with them, with the paintings, and not so easy to be written off as being cartoonish. Um, yeah. At the same time, I was going through my own sort of, personal things. I got married. My dad died. I had two kids. And at first, I thought I had to choose between being a good father and a successful artist. And at that time, I chose to be a present father. And so for the first 6 years of their lives, my focus was on creating a stable and loving and healthy home, and I painted whenever I could. But to be a better father, I began to look inward to try to really understand my own story and found that it was sort of a false choice. I didn't have to choose, and that I was a father and an artist, and I couldn't really deny that. I wouldn't be a good father if I did. Um, and so I did paint less through those years, but more intentionally. I concentrated on craft. I stopped relying on white for highlights. My paintings began to have a more saturated palette and be more dramatic. The details also became a very important part of my work. I saw and I do see them as being sort of breadcrumbs that I can drop to also lead in the direction of the narrative. And I also experimented with how I could depict that narrative. Here I was looking for a way to successfully illustrate our interior lives, which was fun, but it felt too obvious for what I wanted to do. So I moved on to things a little bit more ambiguous. Um, I settled on the idea that color and composition and tonal depth were really important for the work that I wanted to create, and that shadows in particular held a lot of potential for me in telling my story. So I stopped relying on black paint, which sort of flattened everything, and began to try to work in detail in those shadows. Oops, let me get some water. Um, and these are more sort of examples of how I use detail to try to aid in the composition, aid the composition in telling the story, without giving you all of the answers. My hope is that the viewer will come to the work with their own life experiences and be able to sort of make this story complete on their own. So, and then I began to study things in 2016. I began to study things that I'd never learned in art school, like color. I thought it could be sort of the the element that could push my narratives forward and evoke a palpable feeling in the viewer. Um, and this painting in particular was my first attempt at not using local color as my default. And I've sort of continued that in different ways to this day. And this painting I showed for the first time with Ada Rose in 2016, who has been an incredible supporter of mine for the past 10 years. Just really encouraging and very generous. I also was trying to find a balance between organic mark making and this sort of careful rendering of with the paint that I do, which I feel like I'm always drawn to sort of over blend or over work that way, and I have to remind myself to try to pull back sometimes and be loose. It's another example of using color as a narrative element. I used two complementary palettes to create a sense of tension and extend the possibilities for that narrative, and began to explore classical compositional techniques like rule of thirds and the golden ratio and others, and began to use glazes to create that depth and not, going back to the black paint, trying to find depth in those dark places. And sometimes I abandon local color entirely, like in these two paintings. So these are more like exercises in color than anything else. And then in 2017, Ada Rose Bitterbaum invited me to have a solo exhibition in her gallery. And with that work, I started to explore the feelings and the reality of being disconnected and alienated, despite and sometimes because of the close proximity in which we live to one another. I was particularly interested in how that's reflected in our personal relationships, in our politics, and personal identities. And I was trying to make images that addressed our present sort of political situation, I think, but also drew on our past. So, and then the 1950s aesthetic continued and continues to resonate with me on many levels. I find it a fascinating time where industry and government used advertising to promote a prescribed way of living. And of course, my parents came of age during the 1950s, so I'm sure some of that they absorbed, and then my sisters and I were influenced in some ways by that. Um, Color and composition continued to be a strong focus for me. And I was also becoming very interested in the things that we draw on to construct identity, particularly national, political, and familial identities. And on the other hand, as my sons grew, children became more and more present in my paintings. I began to see them as witnesses of our reality, as sometime critics, as empty slates, as bubbles of emotion and spontaneity, and as sources of immense joy, among other things. And I continue to explore the idea of suggesting unseen elements to make the narrative more powerful. Try to remind myself to be loose with my mark making again. And let's see. And even though these paintings are outwardly representational, my intentions are more abstract. I'm painting emotions. That's what I've sort of come around to, is I'm painting feelings and trying to make sense of, like I said before, of this crazy, beautiful world that we live in. This painting I'm particularly proud of. In it, I was able to apply all of my ideas about technique, composition, color, and human relationships. It's also one of the few paintings that's still available through Evoke Contemporary, the gallery that represents my work in the West. And then the pandemic years happened, and it felt for me like a bit of limbo time. I'm sure for other people too. My studio is in my home, and my wife and kids were suddenly back in it all of the time. And being the parent with the flexible schedule, I returned to making the home work for everybody and helping the kids with school and making food and all those things. But I did continue to create and decided to do a daily ink sketches of my reality, of my day. Every day I would sit down and I would take 45 minutes and take a, ink and draw whatever. And then on the other page in my sketchbook, I would write about what was happening that day. So went back to this idea of in a journal. And I continued. I was able to put out a few paintings during that time, not as much as I would have liked, but then as Michael talked about, a bit of a lifeline came my way. It was a commission request from Tyler the Creator to make his cover for his album, Call Me If You Get Lost. It was used in 2020. It was in 2021, and it was used again when he released an extended edition of the album called The Estate Sale in 2023. And it was wonderful. It sort of reminded me of what I loved about painting, and also sort of this hand to work with another artist who had a very unique and specific vision, and so inspiring at the same time. Also, during the pandemic, I was able to find inspiration at a dark time when obviously the world seemed crazy, but things were happening in my family. My mom was diagnosed with dementia, and there were other life-altering family events that happened. But there was one day when my sisters we moved my mom out to a senior living facility, and my sisters and I began to empty out our childhood home. And I came across a photo of myself in a Batman costume which is up there in the left-hand corner. I'm the one with the Batman mask. As a costume my mom made for me. And I don't know, I found this, and as soon as I came home, I just began drawing little bat kids and other children in costumes. And this is sort of where I've come from those. These are two pieces from my newest body of work that will be part of the show Without a Rose. The Bat Kids live. And then here are more of the most recent stuff that I'm working on. These are preparatory drawings for paintings that will also be part of Ada Rose show. In them, I'm exploring ideas about no surprise, about the construction and deconstruction of identity under the pressure and influence of external factors. And I think the next one is showing you the next phase in the process, which are these final drawings that I do before painting. They're pretty detailed, and I do color studies, and it's pretty laborious process, but it works for me, and that's where I am. We're here. Hopefully that was interesting, and if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to take them.
Yeah, wow, that's awesome. It's wonderful to see the kind of progression of your work and kind of like try and pinpoint certain elements of, the film concepts or what Michael was talking about earlier. Absolutely, really, really cool stuff. I had a kind of a question about just, how do you decide, a color palette? Like I understand like you have like an emotional element that you want to convey in each piece, but besides just saying, oh, blue, sad, and warm colors for happy, how do you kind of decide, the complementary color mixtures or the tertiary? Like, how do you kind of decide how the palette's going to function in each of your paintings?
I mean, definitely those sort of obvious emotional things you're bringing up are part of the decision-making process. I do think a lot about what, like I said, aesthetically, 1950s is a time that is pretty important in my work, and so I am looking at those palettes. My work is a little bit more saturated in those, but they mostly I'm trying to figure out how I can lead the viewer's eye around, create a sense of well, it's hard to hard to pinpoint exactly, but it's a lot of it's gut for sure, for real. I mean, I do a lot of different Photoshop sort of mock-ups of palettes and see which one works. I don't know if it's much more complicated than that, but sorry.
If I may, hi, this is wonderful. Thank you so much, Gregory.
Thank you.
I didn't understand at first when you said you were a self-taught artist because you described going to art school, and then I realized why you mean very much self-taught,
Yes.
because you didn't learn any of the skills you needed now
No.
for
No.
for what your current wonderful work is. I have so many questions, but a quick one is this oil,
This is acrylic.
the palette that's on your, what is
Acrylic.
it? It's acrylic, and you mix all those mixtures to use a retarder
I do. Yeah,
to
but then
keep
I also
them
have
fresh?
and then I also seal them in like it's almost
Yeah.
like a Tupperware container to keep it,
Right,
and they can
right.
last a long time. I used to also use fruit cocktail cups with lids, and those
I
can
see.
keep
You
me
could
wet for up
cap
to,
them,
I don't know, 2 or 3 years.
right. You draw so beautifully in your sketches are so complete. What size are they approximately?
I can show you one now.
Oh, thank you.
So for size reference,
And do
these are
you draw
tiny.
them?
These,
Oh my gosh. So it's like at 3 by 3
yeah, 3 by
inches,
3.
something like that?
Yeah, yeah,
Whoa. And
yeah.
you really almost bring it to completion before you go to the bigger
I
piece,
mean,
correct?
yes, I mean, I have the general idea of what I'm going to be painting, but I know, for example, with this sketch, there are things that will change in it.
Yes,
Um,
I see.
it's
Oh,
more a
that's
guide.
and that's done with ink or
This is done
or
with graphite and colored pencils and acrylic paint.
okay. So you do the color sketches also in acrylics.
Yeah.
and you kind of already have your palette more or less laid out for that painting, for
Yes.
that particular piece.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
No,
Was there
thank you.
something from sculpture that you brought into your current work?
I don't think so. It was other than that critique. I mean, that was a
Yes,
real
yes. That is
driver for
awful. It's awful.
it was awful, but I
Be
think it helped me focus. And it's true. I didn't really know what I was doing. I didn't know myself. I was 20 or
but
19 and
how could you? Right.
well, no, for sure. Well, artists are
I don't know.
professors aren't always known for being the most gentle with
I
their
know.
advice. So I
I
took it.
am a physician by training, and I was born and raised in Argentina, by the
Oh,
way.
all right.
So I really relate to your Buenos Aires series and your affinity for that, for the whole Buenos Aires. I would love to talk to you at some other point. Thank
Anytime.
you.
I still have contact with my wife is Argentine and we go back
Oh,
almost every year. So yeah.
oh, wonderful.
Hmm.
Okay, we'll be in touch, I hope.
Sounds good, Mariana. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, I want to kind of extend on some of the points that Mariana had brought up. And you do a very detailed studies before you do it. And it's wonderful that your Instagram site shows a lot of that process, which as an artist, I'm fascinated by. And I'm seeing a lot of times I'm excited by a sketch. And as an architect, I would always say that the sketch is more powerful than the finished rendering because there's all the potential is yet to be realized. And as a viewer, you were talking about how you bring your baggage with you as you interpret the work. And I do kind of think that you're telling half a story that the viewer finishes in their mind. But you do such beautiful, beautiful, detailed studies and in today's world, the art world is much more about fast, impulsive, gestural, and your work is very slow and deliberate. Do you think that you're pushing against the current, or do you think that you're in step with it?
I think that probably I'm against the current now, but I think that I've never worried about that. I'm an artist because I couldn't do anything else. And so this is just me, and I realized that a long time ago that the most successful work I do has to be true to me. And so trying to fit with what's happening is always when I do that, it results and it has terrible results. When I would do commissions, I did lots of commissions when I was younger, and I hated them because you had people who didn't quite know what they wanted. And they didn't quite know what they wanted. They knew that you were a capable artist, but they weren't really always hiring you for you. And so yeah, as soon as I could say I don't want commissions, I did, except for when really good ones come along where they give you space um, to they're hiring you for your unique vision of the world, right?
Yeah. And when you do work for a person like Tyler, the creator, I mean, your audience must have instantly broadened. I mean, do you think about the role of your paintings in popular culture?
Do I think about it? I mean, I definitely I've got a lot of millennials and Generation Z people that are following me, and I get a lot of young rappers writing me to see if I'll do a cover for them. Um, I don't know. I don't know how it will affect. I don't think about it too carefully. I'm excited to be part of his sort of catalog of albums. He has other great artists who have worked with him. Mark Ryden is one who did one of his album covers. Eric White did another one of his album covers. So I mean, if anything, it feels good to be recognized for your work and asked to participate in that.
Yeah, I was actually noticing a little bit of writing's kind of flair, even kind of in your work. So I can kind of see there's a little bit of a overlap in that kind of polished, unsettling, doll-like kind of feel at times too. But I was actually kind of leading into the question about like like your influences. Like I saw early on, there was kind of almost the Rufino Tamayo kind of flair to your early Argentinian work, but and I of course Hopper and people like that kind of are embedded in what you do. There were specific people that really, or painters or paintings that just said, ah, this is kind of the idea that I'm trying to kind of convey in my work. I can imagine it's all cinema related. I'm sure there are painters that are kind of striking to you. Like, who are they and how'd that come about?
Yeah, I actually like Tamayo. I wasn't aware of at that time. Um, no, I don't think that cinema was huge. I mean, I was interested in animation and film and storytelling, and so it really drew me. I think when I did a trip to Mexico City and Oaxaca and Chiapas in 2003, and there I think it clicked for me seeing the muralists that I wanted to create work that was accessible, like not hand feeding the viewer, but something that is relatable at least visually, and that would be an entrance for these sort of darker ideas or um, observations that I was trying to portray. But no, I can't say that there was any artist. It's weird, I know, but there were comic book artists that I liked a lot. But that's how I learned to draw was from comics for sure. When I was a young kid, I would look at comic books and I would create charts where I would copy noses at all different angles and eyes at angles and ears, and then I would put together my own characters with those sort of cheat sheets. And
Could have sworn I'd say, oh, Bellows, like George Bellows, like the way you, especially like looking at your Instagram and how you kind of compose your compositions. And George Bellows had the same kind of,
Dynamic.
yeah, exactly, the dynamic of how things are kind of constructed
hmm,
and exaggerations, like and the Americana, like I feel like you are kind of a contemporary version of these masters in a lot of ways. So anyway, that's just a feeling I
I
have. Go ahead,
thank
Mariana.
no, no, yeah, thank you, appreciate it. They're
Do you still do keep a journal?
not regularly, not regularly. It's sort of like when I have when probably when I'm in my darker moments, that's when I start just to sort of process things and but it doesn't normally last more than I don't know 6 months or a year at this time.
Uh-huh. And where do you get your text, like to name the pieces? There are some beautiful.
I have a list, I have a running list of titles that I've been keeping for the past 20 something years. And, I have some that I love that I have never used but want to use. I don't know, it can come from music. Like I'm a big music fan. I listen to lots of music, all kinds of music. And so it could be lyrics. It could be something I read in a book also. Yeah, anything. I sort of just, in my phone, I have a notepad. In the notepad, I just sort of write down things as they come to me.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
When young artists come to you and say like, how do I become, as successful as you, or like, what are some advice that you give to young artists when they approach you? I'm sure lots do, especially after your success.
I mean, I know there are much easier ways of getting to where I am now, like school and uh, asking people for advice. Also, I guess I would say like just like number one, you have to really, especially if you're starting the beginning, really be open to exploring anything, um, and work at it really hard. Work at it really hard. And when you find the direction that is of interest to you, just follow that path. And even if it, like, when Michael asked before, if it doesn't seem to be popular, you go that way. And I think you most of the time you will be successful. I think it's a combination of that and really working really hard and continuing to educate yourself. If you're not going to go to school, I'm constantly trying to figure out different techniques for the painting and looking at other artists. I mean, I'm watching Michael's work too and how he does it, and I'm pretty uh, amazed at how he can go directly from just a gestural drawing to the piece. That is something that would be amazing to do. But I don't have I definitely don't have a roadmap, but definitely get out there, talk to people, participate with other artists. If you can collaborate with them, it's a good thing. I mean, I know it's hard when you're not in art school if you once you get out, but there are people out there that want to help you, will want to help you if you're true to sort of your vision.
It's one interesting thing, and I think Michael actually falls to the same. Well, all three glass guys, but like the previous career, I think is so important to their artistic, who they are as artists. And people like Steve Wana, who have also been part of our program, they had previous lives before became artists. I think that makes them better and more accessible. And it's not like this cookie cutter, you know, art school kind of skill base that, they have to go and learn it but it's never the same as like an art. I think it's better than just going to an art school. And it's a common trend, I think, especially with artists in our area, that it isn't it isn't the person you think in or has all the technical abilities. It's like your point of view, your life experiences that really kind of make you successful and better. What do you think, Michael? You agree?
Well, I do think that it is a journey that you go on, and as Gregory had talked about, he had to live something. When you're a 20-year-old, you have a very simplistic take on a lot of things. Even though I will say that the humor that was within the shaver with a saber tooth kind of thing does come through his pieces. And I will say that also the teeth, too. I see a common theme of these people laughing in the background of his pieces, while the person who's sitting sullen in between always is a strong kind of focus that everyone's laughing except for one, and everyone has almost this kind of scary Batman-esque kind of laughing around them except for the one person. And it is very makes it very compelling. And I always kind of wonder when I'm looking at Gregory's work, I mean, are you doing this as a social commentary, or is this more of a personal exploration that you're showcasing this drama in this painting? So I'm going to turn to Gregory and ask that.
Sure. That's good. I I think I would have told you like 20 years ago that it was social commentary. Definitely. There was nothing personal about it. It was, but I think I'm older and wiser now and understand that it's completely infused with, my personality too, right? I mean, I experience the world, how I did experience the world, how, you know, uh, yeah, I think that it's not one thing, but it's definitely there's more of a sort of my view of how the world works for sure. I'm trying to understand it.
I hate to ask a
I do
cliche
love,
question. Go
I
ahead.
was going to say, I do love the Batman references. I just thought they were hilarious. They take me back to there was a artist in Chicago, Stay who would always have as his characters the kid wearing the Batman outfit with the ears and everything. And it just strikes a chord in me that it says
Awesome.
that's growing up in America from the
Yeah,
60s on.
yeah, definitely, definitely. Well, there are more coming, so
And Michael, you and your own superhero work too. So
right.
Can you tell us when the next solo that you're anticipating is?
Sure. Right now it's tentatively October of 2026 with the Ada Rose Gallery. Of course, that's subject to how quickly I can get all of these pieces done. But she's been amazing. She really is a wonderful person and gallerist, and has been really patient and supportive of me through this whole pandemic. It was a really sort of turbulent time for me. So yeah, she's been great. Looking forward to it, and
and
hope
those
to
of you
see
who
you all
are
there.
watching the recording, Adarose has presented for us in the past, and I think you were actually included in her slideshow, if I recall. But she has been a anchor to the DC art community. She's one of the oldest galleries, I think, that were still surviving. But her love of art and love of artists has been an incredible gift to our area.
Definitely,
So yeah,
definitely.
and a lot of our presentations, like Marimi and Rosie, who are exhibiting here, and also one of her represent artists. She's got her hand in a lot of success of a lot of the people here in DC.
For sure. I love that she's also so open to all kinds of art. She doesn't focus on a particular style or yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it's a kind of a dying breed, these kind of galleries that are so
Right. Open
influential
minded.
to the artist and the audience, where they're not just marketing a product, they're actually taking an artist on a journey
sure.
as a almost as a supporter, as a person who's pushing them into new directions and introducing them to new worlds. And it's so good that you were able to meet a good one, because the world is changing for the art world. It's not like it used to be where the gallery and the collectors were connected to each other. And so as they untether to each other, as an artist, you don't have that support system that really kind of brings you on and shows you why this is important and tells the collectors this is what's the important person.
I'm lucky, and I have Molly Rupert to thank for that
Oh,
introduction.
another person. Yes.
I was having coffee with her, and she said, "You need to talk to Ada Rose." And there have been a lot of women in my life in the art world who've been very supportive. From Pat Gosley introducing me to Manon Cleary, and and so on. And so,
You're like name dropping everyone who's in the important parts of DC since 1980.
yeah, I've been lucky. I've been lucky, that's for sure. But Ada Rose, I mean, she really is. I mean, we have monthly studio visits. She comes over, we talk, and she sees how slowly I'm going, but she has exhibits a lot of faith in what I'm doing, and I really appreciate it. So,
Wonderful.
When you are preparing for a show for like your 2026, that seems like so far away from in my head. Like,
Yeah.
uh, I know it takes a long time to create these pieces, and do you have like I don't want to say like, do you have this kind of Vermeer-esque feeling where it's like, oh, I get two paintings a year kind of thing, or what is your process like to create a show?
well, I've never created a show this big, and so yes, there's a bit of that, like, I'd be breaking any record by multiple time, amounts of paintings if I can do it by October. Um, I mean, I've got like a production sort of uh chart that I'm trying to follow, that it becomes a little bit um boring in that way, but anything I can to keep myself focused. I have timers when I work, because I can drop into the work so much that I could be working on one little area for days if I'm not careful, and most of the time those areas are not going to be making or breaking the painting. And my way now of knowing when I've gone too far is if my wife comes home from work and she looks at my painting, she can't tell that I've made any progress, then I know that I was wasting my time. So yes, that's another way.
Relate to that at
That's
all.
my wife there, the little comment.
There's this exercise that I have students do. I'm like, all right, take an old master painting and then do it in 50 strokes.
That's
And
awesome.
like, I want to see like immediate results.
Yeah,
I can't. Oh gosh.
that's a great idea though. We had to do those things in our art, like introductory year in VCU. We had to do those kind of things. We had to do like a multiple, like you'd have to do like an hour where you have to do a drawing every minute, a gestural drawing of yourself. It was a self-portrait, and they were fantastic. Uh, yeah, they're really good.
I
Yeah.
think we should
Well,
do a
you did
talk
the
on
Mona Lisa.
I think we
I,
should do a talk about our school or our education as an artist and what the most pivotal moment was. And for you, with it's a joke without a punchline kind of thing is one of them. I can talk about as an architect having the architect just tear apart the drawing bit by bit, and they ended up with the bathroom. And he said, "This is the only thing that works." So, I need to have you have make 15 more studies based with this as the starting point. You run back and
it's funny you mentioned that particular thing that happened to you. On a side note, I'm watching a program with my kids, and in it, there is a guy who wants to be an artist, and he's being mentored by a sculptor, and he does that same thing. So maybe it was your teacher he was being
but
referenced.
it works. I mean, it made you change your mind about how you thought you were blithely doing the correct thing. And
Yep.
again, that shock to your system that says reevaluate.
Yeah, totally.
I was told my art looks like hotel art.
Oof,
Grad school's rough.
oof. I mean, I have people come into gallery shows, and they stand there for 15 minutes, and they look at me and they're like, I could never ever live with this piece of painting. And now my response is like, it's okay. It's not meant for you. Everybody has their own public, but yeah, there's something for everybody.
Oh, Gregory, this has been absolutely fabulous, and we're so grateful that you gave us your Saturday morning. Uh, do you, besides the show coming up next year, is there other places we can see your work in the meantime?
In person, I mean, Ataros has a few pieces. And I mean, hopefully, I will be able to give her a few pieces also before the show starts. But right now, that's it. I mean, and then after that, I'm supposed to start working on a show for Evoke Contemporary in Santa Fe, which will probably take another year or something. So it's this constant, slow sort of production. But I will announce anytime I have, my workout, I'll be announcing it on Instagram for sure.
Yeah, for everyone watching this video, go check out Gregory's Instagram. It's really a wealth of
Yeah,
knowledge, and
it's
it's
amazing.
wonderful to dive into your process.
Thank you.
Michael, thank you for bringing Gregory to our program. It's been
Yes, thank
absolutely
you, Michael.
fabulous.
Thank you, Michael.
You're
Thank
always
you,
the
Mariana
best.
and Jordan.
And
Also,
thank you. Let us know when the show is, if you
I
can
will.
shoot an email, or I know Ada Rose will publicize, but
Yes, but yes,
also
I'll put you on my
to
list for
remind
sure.
people.
Sure. I'm happy to.
Thank you.
In 2 weeks on September 20th, we have Lane Wilson, who is hosted by Matt Close. Lane was also actually serendipitously, won the Bethesda Painting Awards this year. So we get to hear about her plein air paintings and her process. I went and visited her at the gallery when she was at Gallery B for the Bethesda Painting Awards. She's lovely. So come back in 2 weeks for another incredible painter. Yeah, and we'll see you guys in 2 weeks. Thanks, guys.
Two
All right.
weeks.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.